Hello, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to continue on with really the last few days. I've been reviewing these stay orders or stop orders that are being made by judges in the United States to stop the policies or prevent or limit the policies of the Trump administration in a whole range of areas. As by my count, there's 50, I think 50 stop, stay or restriction orders have been placed. And one or two of them, I suppose, a few of them, maybe legal review, you could argue at a stretch is maybe not out of place, but the majority, over 40 of these stay orders are blatant, brazen activism by the globalist cabal to disrupt and frustrate the Trump administration's policies. Now, remember, many of the policies that President Trump is trying to implement go directly against the interests of the globalist cabal. So they're fighting back and they're using the courts as proxies to push, exercise and defend the globalist ideology, and that's what it's all about. It's nothing about the law or anything. Now, when the globalists rigged the 2020 presidential election, they also, in my view, rigged a couple of senatorial elections, which assured them a majority in the Senate. And senior politicians such as Chuck Schumer and so on the Democratic side openly gloated and reveled about the idea that we can now appoint lots of judges because whoever has the majority in the Senate is able to approve the judges. And the Democrats were, again, under globalist control, the Democrats were laser focused on appointing activists as judges, particularly in the federal judge roles, given the power federal judges have to, for example, as we're seeing now, restrict or limit or prevent the implementation of the policies of the president. Now, there's a time lag between policy development, if you like, and when Congress gets around to legislating on it. And given the slim majority that the Republicans have in the House of Representatives, and given there's a couple of waverers, that are really left-leaning type senators, and they're clearly being got at by the globalist machine, they really only have a one or cast vice president casting vote majority in the Senate. Whereas, the Democrat senators would 100% would vote for activist radicalized judges or people to be appointed as judges, the radical activists. The Republicans are not quite so keen to keep solidarity with their party or their president for that matter. So there's a different attitude towards appointing judges. I think the idea that whoever holds the majority in the Senate should decide the judges, that was fine when everyone was in agreement that judges should be appointed based, the only constitutional judges should be appointed. Then that was fine. There's nothing wrong with that, whoever holds the majority. But now it's a very different thing. The Democrats, again, are laser focused on appointing activists to the judiciary, whether it's at the Supreme Court level. I mean, look at Sotomayor and Jackson, for fuck's sake. I mean, you wouldn't give them law clerk jobs in some outer suburban Bush law practice. So appointing these activists. Now, if you saw the senatorial hearings when the judges were being, or the judge nominated, people nominated to be federal judges, if you looked at or listened and watched the senatorial reviews of the candidates, I was shocked at the low quality. I mean, even putting aside the activism for a moment, I was staggered at the low quality of people that were being given the role of federal judges. Clearly the only concern that they had was making sure activists were appointed. So they were openly and aggressively wanting to undermine the integrity of the judiciary, which has brought us to where we are today. So all those activists, with a couple of exceptions, all those activist judges that were appointed are now being gone to by the activist groups and to try and get stays or restrictions put on the Trump administration's policy implementation and policy platform generally. There's also been a second layer of subversion of the judicial process, and that is that most judges, and with not too many exceptions as far as I can see, are being their family members, their wives, their children, their brothers and sisters and so on, are being richly rewarded by the globalist cabal. They're being appointed as CEOs of cashed up NGOs. They're being appointed to various jobs and positions that rely 100% on globalist largesse and patronage. So when a judge has a decision to make and realizes that his two children or his three children are going to be quickly unemployed, the wife is going to be unemployed and going to lose her prestigious position as chief ambassador of this or that NGO. And that's worth millions of dollars a year in income to the wider family, and again, the prestige, being invited to all these sumptuous cocktail parties and the like. So what's the judge going to do? I mean, the judge has kind of got a rule in favour of the activist group because they have so much background, backdoor, behind the scenes influence, and his family will be bankrupted. They've all got big mortgages and they're driving nice cars with huge payments, and their kids are going to private schools, and so they can't afford to lose these jobs. So the judge has to do the right thing and rule in favour of the globalist cabal. Otherwise, it's bad news in the back room for his family. So we've got this situation where judges are actually hostage in the second tier, if you like, or in the back room, hostage to the globalist cabal. Now, on top of that, there's one judge that made a ruling on trans and LGBTQ type issues. Now, the recusal judges, there was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when judges would voluntarily and happily recuse themselves based on a conflict of interest. And I'm personally aware of cases here where the judge would say, well, look, I actually know someone who's party to the litigation, and or I even indirectly, like, oh well, I know this person's, there's a woman I know this person's husband. I went to school with that guy. I'm going to have to recuse myself here based on conflict of interest. Or even lawyers, for that matter, lawyers that are particularly lawyers that are going to litigate in court. Well, I can't litigate this case because I know that guy, or I know this person, or I worked for that company once, and so on. So there was a sense of propriety that was and to be seen to be and to be above any idea of conflict of interest or being compromised or anything like that. Was considered to be very important. Now that's all gone out the window today. People, particularly on the left and particularly the globalist cabal, the opposite is the case now. We want the activists we want people who are beholden to us to be making these legal decisions, and it's completely changed, or in one aspect at least, completely changed this idea of recusal. Now, if we look at say this decision about trans and that sort of stuff, LGBTQ and so on. The judge now, just to actually, it's about trans Latino people in particular. This is the thing. Now the judge is, wait for it, a Latino lesbian who has worked for and represented NGOs in the area of trans rights pretty much her entire adult life. And she's got an affirmative action law degree. She didn't get a rigorous, hard-working law degree. I mean, she's just an affirmative action diversity high stooge, but she's been gifted a job on the federal court that she could not possibly have won under any sort of merit. So she's been given the job because she's a an LGBTQ activist and nothing more than that. So when the LGBTQ, or the trans Latino people want to launch a lawsuit to frustrate Trump administration policies, they just go judge shopping, and they're able to get an emergency hearing with an activist judge who has a long track record of Latino, trans, LGBTQ activism. Now, that judge should, as soon as the case comes to she's just, no, I have to recuse myself. I know a lot of the people and people who know the other people. I've been involved in this NGOs for, I can't hear this case. So I'm going to have to turn it down. So only a completely impartial and independent judge can hear the case based on the facts. Now, if you look at the ruling of the judge, in this case, the judge just asserts blandly that minority groups have been marginalised in the past, and she's going to fight for their, in their corner to make sure that they're no longer marginalised. So clearly, her entire ruling is ideological. There is not a single fact based on that. We assert that marginalised groups, we assert oppression, we assert this. The whole thing's ideological. Now, somebody like that should not be making legal rulings. I mean, let's not quibble about this. They should not be doing it. They have an outrageous conflict of interest. They're ideological fanatics and activists, and they're not applying the rule of law or due legal process. Now, they shouldn't even be a judge, but they're there and they've been appointed. And the idea that politicians can just arbitrarily kick judges out they don't like, let's not go down that path. But nonetheless, the Congress needs to act on this basis of recusal, standard for recusal. So the other side say, well, you can't hear this case. Your ruling is invalid. You're a radical activist in this area, and we can prove it. And so you can't even hear this case. So your order is set aside. Your ruling is set aside. So this would go a long way. Wouldn't do it 100%, but it'd go a long way to neutralizing this idea of activism. Now, in this case, the judge is activist. In the other case, the judge's wider family were heavily dependent on globalist sources of income, and the judge ruled in such a way that would protect the interests of his family and their income, given their employment in the globalist cabal. But if indeed the judge's wider family is employed in the globalist cabal, the guy or the person can't be a judge, because already their independence is hopelessly compromised. And that needs to be understood and recognised and dealt with. And Congress, I believe, need to act, or any Western, because the whole Western world has got a compromised legal system now. Activist judges have been appointed all over. People who couldn't have got a job sweeping the floor and are acting as federal fucking judges. So this is an absolute burning issue. And articles of impeachment against judges, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. That's not the real fundamental issue here. We're looking at an entire legal judicial process that has been hopelessly compromised and subverted. And in order to bring that back to the centre, the idea of forced judge recusal needs to be a centrepiece of any judicial reform. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.